Hello, Wonderhussy here, out in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, just outside Death Valley. That's right, even though most of Death Valley National Park is in California, if you look at a map, there's this weird corner of the park that pokes out into Nevada. And somewhere up in them thar hills, there's supposed to be a ghost town. That, because of its remote and rugged location on the Nevada side, still looks pretty much exactly like it did when it was abandoned almost 100 years ago. Let's go check it out. Okay, we have arrived at the first set of ruins. This is what's left of Chloride City. Don't you just love the names they gave these mining towns? I was going to call it a town, but really I think it was probably more of a man camp. Okay, if you've ever heard of a man camp, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of dudes camping out in the middle of nowhere on some godforsaken hill trying to chip juicy ore out of the ground. This is what's called a Cousin Jack cabin, because that's the name for any cabin that was built into the side of a hill, where the hill forms one or more sides of the cabin. And you can see this one is built right back up into the side of this hill. I think the name Cousin Jack comes from Cornish miners. Okay, there was a lot of miners from the country or the region of Cornwall that came here back in the 1800s to mine. My own great-great-great-grandfather included among them. And I guess Cousin Jack was sort of a nickname for the Cornish guys. And I guess a lot of Cornish guys built little dwellings like this. And there really wasn't much to them, you know, scavenged materials, whatever they had at hand to form some kind of rough little dwelling. Just something to protect them, I'll zoom out, from the elements. I mean, they weren't really standing on formality in these things. You know, you don't see any knick-knack shelves or any carpets or paintings hanging on the walls, because it's a man camp, not a ladies camp. Duh. Anyway, this Cousin Jack is interesting because I guess only a corner of it is built into the side of the hill. Right behind it is a mine adit. This must have been the diggings, whatever they were working on, these mysterious men who lived in that Cousin Jack cabin. Uh-oh. Well, because we're in Death Valley National Park, they put up a big grate so you can't get back in this mine, but you can see somebody has been in here and pulled it aside. So if we wanted to, we could go back in this mine and poke around, but there's so much other stuff I want to do today before it gets dark that I really don't have any time to go poking around in the bowels of the earth. Not when there's an entire abandoned site waiting for us just a little bit farther, I guess, up this road. And what's more, even though we don't really know much at all about Chloride City, I mean, there's hardly any information about it online. I guess the legend goes that some guy picked up a rock to throw at a stubborn mule, and when he picked up the rock, why, there was silver underneath it. So I guess they were mining silver here, I think as early as the 1870s, but it wasn't an actual town until 1904, I want to say. And it was only a town for 1 year. So that's why I say it was probably really more of a man camp. And we don't even know anything about the men who toiled here, other than that one of them was named James McKay. Now, again, we don't know anything about James McKay, who he was, where he came from. I mean, the name McKay doesn't sound Cornish, so I guess we can exclude him from the ranks of the Cousin Jacks. And we can probably surmise that he lived, if not in this shack here, then in another shack in the area. That's about all we know about this lonely grave in the middle of nowhere. Now, it looks like they piled up rocks to keep coyotes and scavengers from dragging his bones away. And it looks like somebody did come up here and put plastic flowers up here at some point. And I do have a golden rose with me in my car. Somebody sent me all these golden roses to leave on these lonely graves, and I hesitate to do so sometimes because it almost seems like it's a little too flashy and could be construed as litter. But since there's already plastic flowers here, and I happen to have a rose with me, I'll go ahead and leave it on the grave of James McKay. R.I.P., good sir. Okay, well, I'm gonna get back in the car because that lonely grave and that Cousin Jack's shack, oh wait, that sounds dirty, that Cousin Jack cabin aren't the only things up here. No, sir, I've been wanting to come up here for a hot minute, and I'm surprised it took me this long to get up here. Yes, the road is rough. I wouldn't recommend coming up here unless you have high clearance and four-wheel drive, but thankfully, I do. So let's get back in the car and keep exploring. Okay, wow. I have seen some things in all my years of exploring Death Valley, but I have never seen anything quite like this. Okay, you can see I'm parked on a little flat spot in these rugged, desolate mountains that just happen to be a magnificent overlook into all of Death Valley National Park. Look at this view. Okay, this is called Chloride Cliffs. And again, I've been wanting to come out here forever, and I don't know why it took me so long. This would be one of the most badass campsites of all time. You know, you could just open your tailgate and look out the back at all of Death Valley laid out before you in all its deathly splendor. Okay, that's Badwater Basin way off there in the distance. That's the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, or maybe just the lowest point in America. I think it was actually dethroned by someplace down in South America. Anyway, it's 282 feet below sea level, and according to my altimeter, up here on Chloride Cliffs, we're at 5,000 feet above sea level. So essentially what that means is you could camp up here with a 5,000 plus foot drop into Death Valley. And that's why it's so nice up here. You know, 5,000 feet in elevation, it's nice and cool. Okay, I'm here in January and it's actually kind of chilly. I mean, I even had my puffer coat on at the beginning of this video, but gosh, imagine when it's 125 degrees down in Badwater Basin. Well, it's probably a balmy 112 up here. Keep this in mind for a summer campsite, y'all. Not only do I feel like I'm on top of the world, I feel like I'm on the edge of the world. You know, imagine what those early pioneers who had the misfortune of crossing Death Valley must have thought when they were confronted with this view. I mean, you can see way off in the distance there the mighty snow-capped Sierra, including, I think, Mount Whitney. I think I can see Mount Whitney just over there. Pretty amazing view to be able to see the highest point in North America and the lowest point in North America from the same spot. I don't know about you, but where I come from, we don't have views like this every day. And it's super cool because there's a whole bunch of different little kind of like dead-end spurs off this road that all lead to little overlooks where I guess it's legal to camp. Oh my God, you could have the most amazing stargazing out here overnight. Assuming campfires were legal, you could have a badass campfire. You could howl at the moon. You could praise the heavens, just like the Native Americans used to do. That's right. Believe it or not, there is a Native American tribe that their ancestral homelands are here in Death Valley. And you might go, oh my God, how did anyone ever survive in a place like Death Valley? Well, the Timbisha Shoshone had a way of doing it. I mean, down in Furnace Creek, there's plenty of water. And then in the summer, when it got real hot, they'd go up in the mountains and they'd gather pine nuts. And I don't know, man, it doesn't sound very pleasant to me, but they had a way of doing it. And to this day, there's still a little Timbisha Shoshone reservation in Furnace Creek. In fact, I think it's the only Indian reservation in a national park in the United States. Fun fact. But the Timbisha Shoshone, I guess, used to come up here too. Somebody told me that these Chloride Cliff overlooks are considered energy centers, okay? Sacred energy centers for the Native Americans. I guess because when you're standing up here, overlooking this, well, you can't help but feel a sense of wonder, awe, and power. You know, it almost seems like you could jump off of these Chloride Cliffs and fly like an eagle over Death Valley, over the Mesquite Sand Dunes, over the Panamint Mountains, which I think is that first mountain range, and then over the Inyo Mountains, which I think is the second mountain range, and then all the way over the Sierra, and eventually to the Pacific Ocean. Anyway, yeah, I could stand up here and stare at this view all damn day. But believe it or not, there's actually more stuff I want to go check out, okay? Remember in the beginning of the video I said there's supposed to be a ghost town up here that is basically untouched because, well, it's so hard to get up here that I guess until SUVs became popular in the 1970s, not that many people were able to get up here. And okay, it's not really a ghost town, it's more of a ghost man camp, and maybe really more of a ghost mine. But before I leave this magnificent energy overlook, which incidentally there's two dudes way up there at the top of that hill, so there must be another overlook up there too. And it was weird because I heard their voices and I'm like, way out here? How could I possibly be hearing voices? Well, apparently, even in the middle of nowhere, there's already somebody there. Ain't that always the way? Anyway, before I leave my little energy overlook here, I'm gonna go ahead and suck in all the energy so that I have the power and the strength to continue living a life where I walk in truth and beauty. And I brought a crystal with me. This is a gypsum crystal that I used at the solstice. We had a community healing solstice. My sister blessed it for me with sage and Palo Santo, and I did a little sound bath over it with a Buddhist bell. Well, I figure I might as well wave it around on Chloride Cliffs just to make sure it's extra supercharged. Oh, great spirit, please infuse this crystal with all of your powers, all of your magic, and all of your energy. And incidentally, I happen to be here just after New Year's. So this is the perfect time to soak up all that energy and bring it into my being for the long year ahead. Got a feeling 25 is gonna be a good year. Remember Tommy, the rock opera? Well, they were singing about 1921, but I don't see why the same sentiment can't be applied 104 years later. Okay, anyway, let me figure out how I'm gonna get to this abandoned mine. Well, there it is. The Big Bell Mine. That's what this place is called. And as you might have been able to tell by the giant cyanide leaching pits or drums, what do you call those things? Anyway, it was a gold mine. It was part of the Bullfrog Mining District, which is the same mining district that the really famous ghost town of Rhyolite was located in. Rhyolite's not that far from here as the crow flies. And boy, I can see why there's so much stuff left at this site. It was so hard to get here. Let me tell you something. Not many people have been here, and that's why it looks like it does. Okay, it may have been a slight exaggeration on my part to say that it looks exactly like it did almost 100 years ago when it was abandoned, because obviously time and the elements have taken their toll, and the buildings are all collapsed and most of the metal stuff is rusted, but there's still a ton of really interesting stuff everywhere you look. I mean, I don't know how they got all this stuff in here to begin with. I mean, it was hard enough to hike down here, let alone drag all this crazy crap down here. Oh wow, look how that window is still intact. Isn't that interesting? This whole building is totally collapsed, but that 4-pane glass window is still pristine. You know, I don't know what any of this stuff does. I just think it's really interesting to look at, but for someone who doesn't have a real interest in this kind of stuff, well, you might wonder why I hiked all the way up here. There's not even, I guess it really was just kind of like a man camp. There was one cabin up there, ruins of an old cabin, but golly, it's all the way up on the ridge there above those adits, which, by the way, let me zoom in on those adits. Oh my God, look at those things. Now those are what I call mine adits. Those look so substantial. They almost look like they've been there since the Roman times, like the Roman caves on the island of Crete. You know where all those hippies and Joni Mitchell used to live? Anyway, there is a cabin way up on the other side of that, but well, the sort of trolley car or whatever they used to use to get across that cable is long gone, and I'm not sure I trust that cable anyway. Oh, look, there is one of those little, I don't know if you'd call that a gondola, an ore cart, essentially. I don't know if it's a cart if it doesn't have wheels on the bottom. Whatever you want to call it, it's a bin meant to transport ore, and it's still hanging on this cable. So I guess if I was ballsy, I could get in and then wheel myself across this chasm. I mean, I only weigh 100 pounds, so I think it would probably carry me, but oh my God, you can see how the cable's moving since I just touched it, and not today, Satan. Look, here's another one on the other side. This one tipped over. I guess it was designed to do that so you could dump the ore out of it, and it looked like there was like a little latch or something that would hold it upright. Yeah, you can see on this one, the little latch thing is engaged, but over here, well, someone took a dump. Pardon my earthiness, but I'm in a man camp. I feel like I can act like a man. I can cuss, I can talk about the old bag back at home, I can take a piss standing up. You can do whatever you want in these man camps. These are manly spaces for manly conversations about manly things. Golly, I wonder where they were getting their water from up here. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, there is a spring sort of near here. It doesn't look like very good water from the looks of it on the blogs I read, but I guess it would have been enough to sustain an operation like this. You know, as long as they had beer and whiskey, I guess they didn't really need that much water anyways. Look, it's wild how all this stuff is kind of, like I said, just curled up, coiled up here, like they walked away from it back in, I think, 1940. I think that's the last time this mine was worked. It wasn't very profitable because there wasn't that much gold up here, and it was just so logistically difficult to get supplies in and then the ore out. I mean, the closest town, when this was founded, this mine was originally founded by this really bad hombre back in 1904 or 5. This dude named Johnny Sati. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. It's spelled C-Y-T-I. Johnny Sati. He was a real bad dude. Prospector back in the day from Austria. He was Austrian, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He came to the United States to make his fortune, and he hit up Bodie, the famous ghost town Bodie. He prospected up there. Then he went to Ballarat, the one over here in Death Valley, not the one in Australia. And then he worked his way all the way across Death Valley over here to the Nevada side, right at the time of the big gold boom in Rhyolite. Okay, that Bullfrog mining district was going off, and there was this big Keen Wonder mine not too far from here that was producing a lot of gold, I guess. So, well, Johnny Sati decided to come strike his luck, and he ended up finding a prospect out here that he called the Big Bell, and I'm not sure why he chose that name. I mean, if it was me, I'd call it the Big Balls mine, because you definitely have to have cojones the size of Connecticut to come out here. But for whatever reason, he named it the Big Bell, and he sold it. I guess that's what a prospector does, is they just identify a prospect and then they sell the rights to mine the area to some mining company. And so he did. He sold it for $250,000 back then in 1904 or 5. and he got a 10% share of that paid up front. So he had $25,000 from finding this juicy deposit that some sucker of a mining outfit was willing to pay him for. And then he took that $25,000 down to Rhyolite and used it to open a dance hall. That's right, a dance hall. You know, the miners would be out working in the mountains all week long, digging out that ore, doing their mine workouts. Anyway, on the weekends, I guess they would go into town when they got their paychecks or whatever, and they wanted to go dancing, and so there was a bunch of saloons and dance halls. And so Johnny Sati opened a dance hall of his own with his money. Now, unfortunately, he ran afoul of the locals because he didn't hire union dancing girls, okay? I'm not exactly sure what a dance hall girl did. I think they just danced with the miners. It wasn't the same as being a prostitute. There was plenty of brothels in Rhyolite too. But anyway, I guess the dance hall girls were unionized because there was some kind of dance hall girl union. And I guess they weren't too happy about the fact that Johnny Sati was hiring non-union talent for his saloon. And Rhyolite was a big union town because the miners had a big union too. And so they all, I guess, stood together in solidarity and boycotted Johnny Sati's dance hall. And well, sooner than later, he ended up going bankrupt. And I guess he tried to sneak back into his dance hall and they threw him in jail. Like he was one of those guys that trouble seemed to find him. And this is all hearsay according to stuff I read on various historical blogs online. Look at this. Here's an ore cart with the wheels on the bottom. You know, the good old-fashioned kind of ore cart that my friend Ross, the one-legged miner, goes absolutely gaga for. Unfortunately for Ross, ain't no one hauling this ore cart out of this ravine. A, because it's part of Death Valley National Park and they don't allow you to do that. And B, good luck getting it out of here. I mean, that's why all this stuff is still here. There's no way to steal it. It's interesting to me that it's built in this wash. I mean, we're basically walking through a dry riverbed, almost like a little canyon. I guess when it rains, the water comes flowing down these mountains and then rushing down through here. I mean, remember, we were standing up on top of the cliff earlier, and you could see we were 5,000 plus feet above the valley floor. So all that water takes the path of least resistance, down, down, down. And so it has come down, down, down over the years and made a royal mess of this old abandoned Big Bell mine site. Oh, look. These look like tracks from a narrow gauge railroad. Oh, wow. It leads back under this. Well, there's a tank up there, one of those cyanide leaching tanks. Well, let's just see what's back in here. You ain't scared, are ya? There's like this square hole in the roof of this thing, and if we poke our camera up into it, it's at the bottom of one of those cyanide tanks. How about that? Don't breathe too deeply. So the tracks probably had carts on them that would park right under that trap door, and then they would open the trap door after they were done leaching the gold or whatever out of it with the cyanide. They would dump the gold, I guess, into the cart and then carry it, I don't know, across the gully, back up there somewhere. Okay, I just made my way down into the bottom of the wash where all this crazy stuff has been swept away over the years, including Johnny Sati's wheelbarrow. Look at that. We could put our hands right where John Sati's hands were. I can really feel the history. I mean, look at the size of this friggin' pulley and this giant hook on it. And then look here. Is this one of those balls that they use to crush the ore? Oh my gosh, it's so heavy. I would guess this thing probably weighs at least 5-6 pounds. Holy moly. So I guess they had a bunch of these balls in some kind of device that would whirl around and bust up the ore. Really interesting place. I'm glad I made the effort to come all the way out here and check this out. I really want to go look at that cabin up on the other side, but it's already 2:45 and well, I gotta hike all the way back up to my car, which is probably gonna take an hour, and then well, it gets dark at like 4:30 and I want to be down off this mountain well before then. But what the heck, I mean, what kind of YouTuber would I be if I didn't at least poke my nose in these adits. Wow, look at these things. This is wild. Whew. Boy, I can't believe I did it. Climbed all the way across that gully, and for reference, I still have to climb all the way back up there to the top where my car is, so I better be quick. But it's actually pretty cool, so I guess there were some kind of ore carts on a little narrow gauge railroad that went to dump into that bin there and came out of these mine adits. I mean, the way these are built, it almost looks like one of those cave houses over in Dublin Gulch, because that's more like a window. Let's see what's inside. Oh, I guess it's just a mine adit, an area with, isn't that called stoping when they do that? But they were just digging some stuff out. And then over here, this is where the rail tracks go into, so this must be like the main entrance. Just past John Sati's old bed. Okay, you guys, you ready? You ready to go in the old Big Bell gold mine? Holy cannoli, look at this. Oh, there's beds for everybody. I've got me a mine. It sleeps about 20. Wow, this is one of the coolest mines I've ever gone in. I mean, these are very spacious adits. Plenty of room to jump up and down. Plenty of natural light. Oh, I guess this tunnel ends here at the end, but, well, looks like it does go on this way. Oh my goodness. If you're a mine explorer type, then, well, you'd probably really enjoy coming here and going back in there and seeing what all's there. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time. I'm just gonna go out, check out what I can, and then try to get a quick peep at this old cabin. Oh, look how absolutely beautiful the view is from up here. You can even see the valley floor from this mine. Crazy. Oh, okay, and then next to the tunnel we just came out of, or the adit, there's, oh look, it's like a little, it looks kind of like a dugout house, or maybe they were just sorting stuff in here, because they probably needed whatever shade they could get. Remember, we are in Death Valley, and it's hotter than bejesus half the time, so you would have needed any shade you could get to lay down, take a little nap, or sort through what all you had just dug out of the mine. You know, this would have provided some very much needed relief in the heat of summer. Remember, I'm here on January, oh gosh, what's today? I think it's like January 6th today, and it's already warm enough that I kind of want to take this hoodie off. Imagine what it's like in August. Okay, so this trail leads to the top of those adits, where it looks like there was something mounted here. And I don't know what that would have been, some kind of generator or something. I don't know. I mean, you know me, I'm not so much for the machinery and the mining stuff. I'm more about finding out about the guys who lived here and what their lives were like. Could this have been where John Sati took a crap? Let's sit down, pretend like we're John Sati for a minute. We just got kicked out of Rhyolite because we wouldn't hire those goddamn commie dancing girls, and we're mad as hell. Quick, gotta hurry. Run out of daylight. What's up here? This is where this ruin of this cabin is. So I guess maybe they just took naps in that cave down there, and the real bunkhouse was up here. Look how cool this old wheelbarrow is. I mean, they don't make them like that anymore. That thing is solid metal. It does. It still works. You could still haul ore in this wheelbarrow from God knows when. I mean, that might not be old enough to have dated from the time that John Sati was around here, but the mining company that ended up buying it, that operated it into the 1930s, can't remember what their name was, but could have belonged to them, and it probably did. And as far as I know, they abandoned this whole mess back around 1940, and it's just been sitting here rusting away in peace ever since. And there was probably even more stuff here until the 1970s, when, according to what I read, that's when SUVs became popular and more people had vehicles that were able to get up places like this. And that's when all these backcountry explorers, weekend warriors probably started coming out here, and, you know, these mine enthusiasts with their sticky fingers. I'm sure there were some things here back then that aren't here anymore. But there's still plenty of fascinating stuff to look around, including the ruins of this old cabin. Look at that. It was just a stacked stone wall that somebody did a pretty dang good job with, because it's still standing to this day. And it's kind of like a cousin Jack, I guess, in that it's built into the side of the hill. Look at that. They just built it right into the hillside. Oh, maybe that was John Sati's bed. Golly, that's not a bed, double spring mattress. That's way comfier than the ones we saw down in the mine. 2 of them, ooh, a queen size. Now, why do you suppose there'd be a queen size bed in a man camp? I can't imagine that they dragged any women out here. Maybe they were bunking together. None of my business either way. Look, there's the old sink. Over here, I better zoom out. This is their old cook stove. Isn't that amazing? Oh, look, reliable. Boy, I'll say it's the only thing left standing in this collapsed house. And then over here, this thing that I thought was a fridge, and which I'm pretty sure is definitely a fridge. Look how shiny the chrome steel is on the handle. Wow, I wonder if we can open it. Oh, there. Oh, wow, yeah, look. It's just an old empty refrigerator, and I guess that's a little tiny freezer compartment up top, so at least they had cold beer. Okay, that was really cool to poke around that old miner's bunkhouse. Now I have to climb all the way back up that ridgeline, and up that ridgeline, and up to, golly, somewhere thereabouts. And then I have to drive all the way back down that bumpy road to civilization. One last look at the mighty Big Bell mine camp in all its dilapidated glory. And I'm putting my camera away. But if you're watching this, well, you'll know I made it back alive.